Well, good evening. Welcome once again, ladies and gentlemen, to the next anniversary talk as we celebrate Glamorgan's 100 years as a first-class county. Now, tonight, I'm delighted to say that we are going to be focusing on the 1990s, which many people consider to have been one of the most successful decades in the club's history, alongside the 1960s, when, of course, Australia were beaten twice at Swansea and the county championship was won in 1969. But during the 1990s, it saw Glamorgan win the Sunday League, as well as the county championship title. And a group of the club's players, several of whom are with us this evening, also won honours with England. So to reflect with us this evening, we have 5 of the key players involved. I'll just get them to introduce themselves, although they don't really need any introduction. So I'm delighted to say we're once again joined by Matt Maynard, who was captain in 1997 when Glamorgan won the county championship. Good evening, Matt.
Evening, Joker.
Nice to see you. Also, the man who hit the winning runs on that wonderful evening in September 1997 at Taunton, opening batsman for both Glamorgan and England. Good evening, Steve James.
Good evening, Higgins. Good evening, everyone. Good to be here.
And another Steve, a member of the Sunday League winning squad and winning team in 1993, as well as the county championship winning team in 1997. It's a very warm good evening to Steve Watkin.
Evening, everyone. Evening, Andrew.
Nice to see you. Now, Darren Thomas, another member of that team, will be joining us a little bit later. He's involved in some coaching activities. I'm delighted to say that Mark Frost, who was also a member of the 1993 squad, is with us this evening. Good evening, Mark.
Evening, Higgins.
Great to have you on board. And our surprise special guest this evening, a man who was Glamorgan's head coach in 1997 when Glamorgan won the county championship. Of course, I'm talking about Duncan Fletcher. Good evening, Duncan.
Evening, Higgins. Nice to be here.
Oh, it's great to hear you. Now, Duncan, where are you at the moment?
I'm sitting in the Marnus at the moment.
Ah, in lovely warm weather.
Not warm, but it's pretty sunny during the day. Very good for golf.
Ah, brilliant. And of course, South Africa doing so well in the rugby at the moment. But we'll, after watching Fiji yesterday, and I agree with every word that Steve James wrote this morning in the Times, we'll gloss over the rugby, but we're going to move on to the to what happened in during the 1990s, I should say. And what we're going to do is have a nice reminiscence, looking back at these various images that I've got. And during the last talk, we ended up with this image, the Glamorgan squad of the late 1980s and the emerging talent that saw Glamorgan do so well during the 1990s. And the 1980s, the late 1990s in particular, saw the emergence of several homegrown youngsters from the Glamorgan Colts, including Tony Cotty, seen standing there second left on the second row, and also at the extreme left on the back row there, a very young Robert Croft, just out of vision on this image. Also, a young Steve James. And Steve, if I could start with you this evening, how important was the Glamorgan Colts team, do you think, in terms of laying the foundations for the 1990s?
Yeah, I thought it was very important. There were obviously a lot of players who came through that side. myself, Watty, Cots, Crofty, Adrian, Dale. I think the coach was important. Jim Presley was a good coach and quite a hard man. For us, he did work as hard, and he sort of taught us what it was like to be a first-class cricketer. I also think it was quite tough going into the league, because basically every side in that league hated us because we were the young sort of thrusters, and they tried to unsettle us. And I think that helped us sort of individually and collectively. So that team sort of learned to deal with a bit of adversity, and I think that sort of showed in later years. So yeah, I definitely thought it was a good idea, and I know they've tried to bring it back, and I think they're talking about trying to bring it back again maybe next season. And my personal view is that would be a good idea.
Watty is the club's academy director. How important do you think the Colts team was as well?
Yeah, former academy director, Andrew.
Well, we're talking about the 1990s and the 2000s, so yeah.
Okay. Yeah, obviously, when I played, I was perhaps a little bit older. I think I was 22. So that team back in the late 80s, mid 80s, was probably an older team than we're looking at now. But I think it's a great idea, great concept. Teaching people or coaching people to show what it's like to be a professional and do everything professionally before the game, after the game, all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, that was a starter. I mean, it finished 2 or 3 years later, I think, and it's taken us, another 30 years to get back around to trying it again with a younger group of players. So, it would be very good for the development of young cricketers, that's for sure. I know there's a few teams in the leagues that don't really want it to happen, but from a coaching point of view, it can only happen. Let's hope it happens sooner rather than later.
And at the same time, the club, I think Tony Lewis, as chairman, had drawn up a blueprint for Glamorgan's success. Obviously, the club celebrating their 100 years as a club, the club centenary in 1988. And around that time, we did recruit some very talented English players. We can see in the second row there, just second from the right, we can see Colin Metten, a very talented wicketkeeper, and also on the front row there, someone who I know, Matt, you mentioned in the last talk, someone who you feel was very important. This gentleman, Alan Butcher. So Matt, if you want to talk about the recruits which Glamorgan made.
Yeah, look, I think Alan signing a player of Alan's calibre at that time, that was quite a big coup for Glamorgan. Prior to Alan, really, would tended to sign players right at the end of their careers, who basically were just on a bit of a jolly, I think, for a couple of years payday at the end of their. But Alan still had a point to prove, I think, as a player. A very talented left-handed batsman, formed a brilliant opening partnership with Hugh Morris, and he was, he had I think he averaged 45 for Glamorgan in his time with us. He had a phenomenal shortish career, I think 140 games, something like that. He would have played for us, but he had a great impact as a player. Probably, one of the strangest things, funny enough, in one of his first games when he was captain, so he'd been at the club a year or so, he actually opened the batting and then decided to open the bowling because he felt in a bit of nick with his filthy left armers. That didn't go down too well with the boys, let me tell you. But he was a very, very good batsman, and it just kind of, when we signed Alan, it kind of just lifted the bar really in terms of where people saw or how opposition would now view Glamorgan. Not one of those players who's just here at the end of his career. And obviously with Colin Metten, one of the finest glovemen, we've had at the club. Brilliant gloveman. Not much of a batsman, as we know, but in that 93 season when he was standing up to Roland Lefebvre and Baz and making life very difficult for the opposition. I think it's something that when Gloucester formulated their one-day plans, they would have looked at us in '97 and with Jack Russell behind their stumps, formulate a very similar plan that the openers would attack, but then up Jack would come to the stumps. And obviously it's a lot harder than to sneak those quick singles that you've got by your feet. Well, you can't do it. And he was very instrumental in that for us, Colin, in that '93 season.
Let's just go back to Alan Butcher, Matt, because he formed an outstanding opening partnership with Hugh Morris. And in 1990, I know I'll be talking to Steve Watkin in a minute about the balls having lower seams and all the rest of it. But in 1990, both of the gentlemen on the screen now, Hugh Morris on the left, Alan Butcher on the right, both scored over 2,000 runs individually. Hugh going on to make a club record 2,276. So Matt, as someone who would have been sat in the changing rooms hoping that there was going to be a good foundation being laid, it must have been wonderful to see Hugh and Alan in such a vintage form.
Did they have something like 11 century partnerships, opening partnerships of a century?
I think it might have been somewhere near
it was phenomenal. You know,
it was, yeah.
In a season to have that many. I mean, the wickets, yeah, there'd been a little bit of concern after the '97 season, so the wickets were supposed to be white, and they took a lot of the strands off the seam of the ball. But it was if neither wanted to get out before the other. You know, like, I'm not going out before you, I'm not going out before you. And they just built this phenomenal partnership, you know, and it obviously set us up nicely for the middle order. But yeah, but bringing Alan was, as I say, a very good signing, a phenomenal summer for them both. And I mean, Hugh's record will stand, you know, forever. No one's going to get close to that.
And Steve James, as a young up-and-coming batter, you'd won honours with the combined universities, with Cambridge University, making your way in the game with Glamorgan. It must have been outstanding. Sorry?
It was a nightmare.
Go on.
Couldn't get in the team. I couldn't get in the team. I mean, so I was at Cambridge. That was my last year at Cambridge University that year, and I got 4 first-class hundreds at Cambridge and came back, thought I might get in the side, and couldn't get anywhere near the side because those two were obviously playing so well. I mean, yeah, brilliant players. I think it's easy to forget how good a player Butch was. I mean, he was an outstanding player. And it wasn't until '92 when, you know, he got injured that I really got a proper chance to open the batting when Matt took over as captain. But yeah, no, so it was tough for someone, you know, young opener trying to get in the side, which is how it should be.
Yeah. Watty, a bowler's perspective now, because the balls were different, weren't they, in 1990? Yeah,
I mean, when I first broke the first team, 88 and 89, the teams were, I think they were 15 strands. I mean, I got a prop here, oddly enough. So these strands here were made of 15 bits of cord. So by 1990, they changed that to 9. So they're almost half the size of the seam. And coupled with, I mean, the wickets that year were really flat. It was a lovely hot summer, a lot of flat wickets around. So it was like a perfect storm for, you know, not for bowling, if you know what I mean. So it was a very difficult year. If you got wickets that year, you had to bowl a hell of a lot of overs. And I think Neil Foster got 90 wickets that year because he was mainly a swing bowler, so he swung it quite well. So, you know, he was a star performer of that year. I think he was Player of the Year that year, 1990, I think. Memory serves me right. But yeah, very difficult year. But on the good side, you had to try different things: slower balls, off cutters, you know, different variations. So from the bowling perspective, I think it actually certainly improved my bowling that year anyway. So so it wasn't all doom and gloom. It was hard work, but, you know, a lot of runs. But yeah, that's the way that's. They actually, a couple of years later, they changed it back to 11 or 12 strands. So, and I think that's been the same since 1991, I think.
You're being very modest, Watty, because you did actually, I think, take something like 68 first-class wickets, even though there were fewer strands on the ball, as you say. And there was one absolutely remarkable game in 1990 at this ground, which must be the nearest thing, I think, to cricketing heaven. I can see Frosty there striding in from fine leg. But the game I'm talking about in 1990, a quite remarkable game, where Worcestershire on the final morning carried on batting and then set Glamorgan a target of 495 to win on the final day. And Glamorgan got to 493 for 6. Matt, do you remember that game? You're on mute, Matt.
I do remember it. We actually had a couple of cracking games at Abergavenny, really amazing games of cricket. And that one was, what disappointed me with chasing all that was the message that went out on the last ball of the game. Try and get a 2. Tie the game. As opposed to try and hit it out of the park and win the game. Because we'd done so well in that innings, in that chase to get, so, you know, it would have been comfortably a world record at first class level to chase that many runs in the 4th innings of a game. And then to try and draw it to get the extra, or tie it to get the extra 8 or extra 4 points or whatever it was, rather than try and win it. I was a bit disappointed with that.
Watty, what are your memories of that game?
A lot of runs scored. Was there a world record for runs at the time in 3-day cricket?
Yeah.
So 1,500 runs. So yeah, oddly enough, you didn't spend that much time in the park in 3-day cricket because people would declare anyway. A huge opening partnership by Hugh and Butch. I seem to remember a couple of hundred.
Yeah.
I think we stalled a little bit in the middle and then we went hard again at the end. What I remember is Richard Illingworth bowling the last over and Crofty missing a paddle. It was a ball that could have been hit and hit him on the pads, I think. And I think we got 1 run. I think that's, but I mean, a fabulous game of cricket and fair play to Worcester. I mean, I think we stuck them in hoping for a chase, I believe, as well. I think memory serves me right.
Yeah.
We got 1. They were pushing for the championship, I believe, at the time. A very good team at the time. But yeah, we got into a position where, as Matt rightly said, we could have won it off that last ball and created a bit more history. But there we are. It wasn't to be.
No, but a game that did go down in the record books, as you rightly say, Watty, for all the runs that were scored. Now, 1990, though, did see another quite remarkable innings. This is the scene on the Glamorgan balcony. I do like your shorts, Matt. They're blue shorts. We can see other members of the Glamorgan team, and we can also see the late and the great Don Shepherd, overjoyed, walking down from the players' balcony at Hampshire, at Southampton, the old Southampton ground at Northlands Road. Steve Bastian just in front. In the foreground, 2 long-standing Glamorgan supporters, R.M. Thomas, Mervyn Thomas. You can also see Peter Mulcahy, Peter Baggs of more recent times. And everyone is overjoyed because a certain man who really needs no introduction, who was in the Glamorgan side, had just played one of the truly great innings in Glamorgan's history. Matt, as we saw there, you were there, your memories of Viv's absolutely outstanding innings to win the game for Glamorgan against Hampshire in 1990.
Just kept staying. Let's take it down. Closer we get, you know, you never know what can happen in the last 4 or 5 overs of a game. And however hard we tried, he was the only one to stay in. Got a good partnership with Nigel Cowley. Nigel would sign Nigel from Hampshire. He played a gritty little, I think he got 50 odd. And then towards the back end, Marshall came in, spread the field, and Viv just took him to the cleaners. It was the most remarkable innings I've seen and finishing I've seen in my life. Put him through covers, splits, Robin Smith, who was quick as anything, and David Gower on the point boundary. And the next ball, he put him into the flats, just tucked him off the front foot. It was a flat deck, but Marshall still could, he was still a bowler at that time. And he made him look like a clubby, it just, that's how great that innings was and how great Viv played. And yeah, we won the game. I think Viv, 150 odd did he get? And we chased down over 300, which I think was for the first time in our history we chased.
Yeah, 364, and for much of the closing overs, he had Colin Metten at the other end. And I think I'm right in saying, Matt, Colin actually faced the first ball of the final over. Yeah,
I think he may have got a single off it, mightn't he, or a run by or something like that.
Yeah,
I just, it was an amazing knock. Just see the guy. I mean, Viv would have been, 38 at that time, 37, 38. Big point to prove. I mean, for me, Viv changed the whole psyche of what was possible, and he led to that period of play, had a huge effect, I think, on all the players around him, but especially me, in terms of just about hanging in there, see it through to the end. And that innings was just absolute genius.
Watty, what about your memories of that game?
Yeah, pretty similar to Matt. I mean, one shot that particularly I remember is, I think Matt mentioned something about the front foot, but a bouncer off Marshall. Viv used to hook off the front foot anyway, but a bouncer off Marshall. I don't think he had a helmet on. I don't think I've ever saw him with a helmet on, but he hooked it and he hit it, about 2 or 3 meters off the ground for 6 flat. That was what I remember, and the way, the calmness that he showed under that kind of pressure was phenomenal. That was, and I agree with Matt, that was one of the great innings by one of the great players, and it was an honour to be there. Really, he didn't, Viv, when he was with us for and I agree with Matt, all the things he said about changing the culture and the winning mentality. He wasn't great all the time, but there were glimpses of how great he was. I mean, winning the, I'm sure we'll come to later, but winning the Sunday League in '93 as well. When it mattered, he was there and he was great.
Yeah, I know I spoke to the 2 umpires who stood in that game at Southampton, and I know that they both walked off and went straight up those stairs we just saw in the previous photo, went into the changing room and shook Viv by the hand, and both umpires, who had years and years of experience, said they had never seen an innings like that. I think Glamorgan at one stage was like as I said, chasing 360. I think Glamorgan were 170 for 5 at one stage. And don't forget, this is the final day, then the overs ticking down, and a truly great innings. Sid, were you there that day?
I wasn't, no.
No, but you did have a chance to play alongside Viv in the next few years. So what were your personal memories of Viv as a batter?
Yeah, just reiterate a bit of what Matt and what he said, really. It was a while ago, somebody asked who's the best overseas player Glamorgan's ever had, and somebody asked me that question, and I said Viv, because I thought Viv had the biggest influence on certainly on this side in the 1990s, because I thought he taught us how to win. I think Alan Butcher had a big part in that at the start. I think he changed the mindset of the side, and then I think Viv took that on to another level. I think we were quite a talented side, but he was the one who taught us how to win, especially in tough situations. There were times, sometimes we won games we should never have won, really, but just because Viv was there, we won those games, and I think that gave us a lot of belief that we took on to the 97 championship winning side, I think. But Viv played a massive part.
Yeah, just to see him walking to the wicket, machismo, macho, chewing gum.
I mean, opposition were genuinely scared of him when he walked out to bat. I wasn't out there very often when he came out because I was normally out. But if I happened to be out there and he came out, you could see the opposition chattering amongst themselves, and you could see bowlers, going white in the face. Basically, he just used to scare people.
Yeah, and a man who, of course, had achieved so much for the West Indies, but it mustn't go past without me mentioning, Steve Watkin, that in your England career in 1991, if we just move on to 1991, when you made your England appearances, you did manage to get the great man out.
Yeah, I did. It must not be forgotten that he gave me a bit of stick in the first innings as well, and I think he got 70 odd in that game at Headingley, and he hit me into the stand a couple of times. And fortunately, in the second innings, he tried to do it too early in his innings, and he just chipped it up and Gooch caught it. So, yeah, he's one of those wickets where you look back with a sense of pride for two reasons, because he's obviously one of the greatest players there's ever been, and he made me look a bit silly in the first innings. So, I did enjoy it, I have to say. Yeah, and I do look back at it regularly. I have to say that as well. Yeah,
but Watty, we mustn't forget either that the late 1980s, the early 1990s weren't a great time for the England Test team, yet you have a record of never having been on a losing England team.
Well, that's a fact. She didn't play that often, two out of three. So that's a decent record. But yeah, obviously I'd like to play it a bit more and have a different kind of record, but that wasn't to be. But to play, obviously, again, it's a sense of pride to have played in just 3 Test matches, but to win 2, one against Australia, who were probably the best team at the time, and one against New Zealand, who were probably the best team at the time as well. So yeah, I look back, early 1990s with a great deal of fondness for, obviously from Glamorgan's point of view and individually as well.
Well, let's move on to 1993, Viv's final season in county cricket, and of course the year when Glamorgan won their first one-day silverware, that game at Canterbury, the head-to-head against Kent. We'll talk about that in a few minutes' time. But let's, Matt, if I could ask you to lead on this section, because it was all part of a strategy which I gather had been hatched whilst the Glamorgan team were on pre-season in Cape Town. And there was a very, very clear strategy which the captain, you can see there, Hugh Morris, had put together, everyone playing a role. Matt, what are your memories of that?
Yeah, pretty much on that tour. Obviously, part of that was to get practice outside and games outside in preparation for the season. But also a big part of that tour was to construct a way that we should be playing as a group. Hugh was a great planner, a great organizer, and so shared his thoughts, but with the rest of the boys as well. And I think one of his thoughts was, look, we're not going to blast anyone out. We didn't have anyone with searing pace, but we had high quality bowlers. So it was formulated that, look, if we have to be out in a 4-day game for 130 overs, we don't want the opposition scoring more than 320. So it's like 2.5 and over. We wanted to try and keep the opposition down to in 4-day cricket. And part of that then was a same good structure with our white ball side. And that was obviously Watty taking the new ball with Roland and Fev. And they were absolutely phenomenal because Watty would get a bit more bounce, Rowley was a bit skiddier, both near inaccurate. And we had a lot of sides behind the 8 ball before 10 overs were out, generally 1 or 2, 3 wickets down. So most sides generally were under par all year, so it made chasing quite easy because we knew that the wickets were of a certain standard and our bowlers would bowl in a certain way. Steve Bart would then come on, then would have obviously Crofty, alongside of him. Adrian Dale or Viv would be used as the sixth bowler. And it was, you know, just a real good formulaic plan that worked. And we stayed fit generally all year. We had the same bowling attack all year. And it was a good formulaic plan that worked and worked and worked. In the odd game, obviously, it didn't. The first two games of that season, we lost them both. With actually Steve Barwick bowling to Devon Malcolm up at Derby in the first game, and Devon hit him for a six to win the game in the last couple of balls of the game. And then we played Northants, I think it was at Penturk, after the dispute at Unisangari Park.
Yeah, I'll come back to that in a minute, Matt, about the game at Penturk.
And then obviously we got on that run, but it was a very formulaic, all the work was done pre-season, and yeah, it was a great, probably one of our best pre-season for that.
Yeah, let's just pay tribute there in a bit more detail to the gentleman on the right here, Roland Lefebvre. I can still remember the sounds echoing around the grounds that Glamorgan played on. Rowley as a Welshman. You can see Tony Cotty there celebrating. I can remember as well Rowley, a very, very fine fielder in the deep. Now, Watty, what were Rowley's skills? Matt just said a few minutes ago about being a much more skiddy bowler, but was there more to Roland than just that?
Well, I'm sure there was. He held his nerve. As Matt mentioned, I mean, he very accurate bowler, brought it in more than out, got it going lower rather than more bounce. So he's always at the batter, always hitting the stumps, hardly ever left the stumps. But I think, you know, one of his greatest strengths was bowling his Yorkers at the death. And I think if he was playing T20 these days, he would be earning quite a lot of money, I would think. He did have a bit of a slower ball, but his main attribute there was, you know, an earning accuracy at front with a new ball, didn't give anything away, hardly went for any runs there. And when he bowled the death, you knew he was going to hit his Yorkers regularly. So, I mean, those are his strengths. And hold your nerve. I mean, if you bowl at the death as much as he did, you've got to hold your nerve. And you know, some days you're going to go the distance, but, you know, the measure of a high-quality bowler is the next time he bowls, he's back on it again. So, I mean, you mentioned his outfielding. Yeah, he got a bit of reputation of taking catches on the boundary and diving catches. And I think that would have gone down well in T20 as well today as well. So I think he would have been more than useful T20 bowler. He could bat a bit as well, obviously. He could strike it well down the orders. So, I mean, a very fine cricketer. So, yeah.
And, of course, Basil, Steve Barwick. I'll ask Matt to chip in about Baz in a minute, but Watty, from a bowler's perspective, a man who'd started as a seamer and then, like the great and late Don Shepherd, opted to bowl off-cutters.
Yeah, I learned a lot from, because when I first started playing in the early 80s, Steve, as you say, was a swing bowler, and a very good swing bowler and very accurate with his swing as well. So he taught me more, say, I knew the fundamentals of swing bowling, but he taught me a little bit extra, you know, subtle changes, subtle ways to hold the ball, you know, and that kind of stuff. And he warned me about, oddly enough, about not, you know, when playing in one-day cricket, not falling away too much. You've got to be careful of not falling away when you're bowling to the death, oddly enough. So I guess I took that on board, but not losing your action, because it can, you know, one-day cricket can play havoc with you. But I mean, when he turned to his off-cutters, I think he lost his potency in the longer format a little bit, didn't take as many wickets. But Matt pointed out about, you know, one of our game plan was accuracy, bowling people. You know, Baz used to go for 2 and over when he turned to off-cutters. And in his, you know, one-day cricket, teams used to have meetings about him. I mean, he's still a legend now. People still talk about Steve Barwick when you go and chat to the coaches. His name is, you know, how's Baz? How's he doing? And all that kind of stuff. But I mean, there's been nothing like him since, I don't think. No, I can't think of anybody. But again, another bowler who I would guess would do quite well in T20. Good, you know, unerringly accurate, and would be a good bowler at the death as well, with all sorts of kind of slower balls, bowl a decent Yorker. So yeah, you know, you're brilliant for me, and you're obviously brilliant for Glamorgan during that era.
And Matt, Baz also had, I think, the politest way of putting it would be a unique training regime and pre-match, post-match preparation.
He was fit for purpose, though, George. Whatever his lifestyle was, he was fit for purpose. You throw him a ball, and he would never, he'd never say no. I've had enough. He just wanted to bowl and bowl and bowl. Like, you'll know the stats. I think he bowled most overs in an innings of down in Swansea, or it was 60 odd or 68 in the game, something like that, in a game, which is the most, I think, by a Glamorgan player. Certainly in the modern era, in a game, and he just loved bowling. So yeah, he liked a beer or two of an evening, but it never stopped him bowling the first ball the next day. He was, in terms of that, he'd do his couple of laps in the morning, do his job, but then generally bowl for half an hour, 40 minutes in nets of the morning of a game, and then continue obviously to bowl as and when required by the captain. But yeah, great skills, hold an end. You could really, a player you could rely on, and hugely well thought of within the team and the dressing room and the public as well.
Yeah, an absolute legend. Now, Sid, you had now formed an opening partnership with Hugh Morris. We've heard Watty and Matt talk about the bowling strategy. Tell us a little bit about the batting strategy and your role, and a little bit later on as well, your role with the other run thief, Adrian Dale.
Yeah, I was going to mention that. I think in terms of the batting that year, the running between the wickets was a huge part of that. I think Hugh will be the first to admit that probably before that he hadn't been a batsman who looked to run that much between the wickets, but he certainly bought into that season. And myself and Adrian Dale had sort of grown up together and played a lot of cricket together, and we'd always had a very good understanding between the wickets. So, we ran very well. Tony Cotty was a good runner, Matt was a good runner. So I think that was something we were doing that probably other sides weren't really doing at that time. I don't think other sides ran as aggressively as we did between the wickets. So I think that was something we had above other teams, and that was one of the sort of many focuses we had on that pre-season tour. As Matt mentioned earlier, that was the first time, I think, as a group, we had a real sort of focus about what we were trying to do, rather than just sort of turning up and trying our best. We had a real focus about what we're going to do. And I remember the first game of that season, I think, was against Kent at Canterbury in the Benson and Hedges game, and it was a real focus to win that game, and we did win that game. There's quite a big celebration after that game, but we trained all that time on pre-season looking to win that game, and that was a great start to the season. I think the other thing with that season, it's easy to forget how well we did in the other competitions, because we were challenging for the championship. But did we finish third in the end, or second or third?
Yeah.
Obviously got to a NatWest semi-final.
We've got some memories of the championship, and we've got some memories of the NatWest coming up, and maybe some bittersweet memories as well when we talk about home in the NatWest. But clearly the start, Sid, that you and Hugh gave us. But I think it's easy to forget as well that at the start of the season, there was also a massive campaign that the club had overseen with reduced priced membership, and also a campaign taking the DAF. You can see there Colin Metten holding it. You can see a very youthful looking Robert Croft there acting as a billboard boy, and an equally youthful Darren Thomas. Darren will be joining us in about a quarter of an hour when his coaching duties come to an end. But Matt, what were your memories of the membership campaign, and how much of an impact did it have on the team playing in front of increasingly larger crowds?
I think it was a brilliant initiative, £15 membership. The idea was to try and get those who couldn't necessarily attend games but wanted to be associated or a member of Glamorgan more widespread. And it certainly worked. I think the membership flew. I think we had the second largest membership in the country after that membership drive. We went all around Wales with the Daffodil. We had Welsh stars of the time in Owen Money, Sarah Edwards off the TV, Yayan Evans,
Terry
promoting sorry?
Was it Terry Yorth as well?
Terry Yorth, that's correct, yeah, from the sports, and a young Tommy was holding the daff, or by a little daffodil in the publicity stuff. So it was a brilliant membership campaign, great membership drive, all the players as well. I think that probably helped a little bit of the team spirit as well, going through Wales with the daff and taking it around and creating this interest. And then, as Steve discussed, you know, we won that first game down in Canterbury, and then more people coming to watch us, more people throughout the season. So yeah, look, it created a brilliant atmosphere, and people felt really connected with the county, which was a fantastic thing.
And Watty, we also played in a variety of grounds, the outgrounds, and playing not so many, whereas these days, the majority of the one-day, the white ball games taking place here at Sapphire Gardens. But I think in 1993, we went around the country. Of course, that was something, Watty, that had happened in the club's centenary year back in 1988. And I know venues like Merthyr Tydfil had briefly been on the fixture list. But Watty, what was it like from a bowler's point of view, rocking up at an outground? And what was it like bowling on those wickets, which perhaps we weren't that familiar with?
I guess for a bowler my kind, my sort, it didn't really matter that much. I mean, there are probably fundamental changes in length, so the paces that you might bowl, or you may bowl more off cutters on a particular surface, but generally the wickets were quite slow. So, I mean, pace off the ball, as they would be saying these days, would be the way to go. But ultimately, I mean, the nature of our attack was accuracy. I mean, and you know, I define it to say, if you're accurate on most wickets, you're going to be successful. So, you know, we all knew our roles. We all knew, I pretty much knew I was going to bowl, I think it was six or eight at the start, depending on where we went. 2 in the middle, 2 near the end, but not quite the end. So I knew exactly what I was doing pretty much every game, and so did everyone else. Yeah, I guess the only difference there was Viv and Adrian Dale mixed their overs up a little bit as the sixth bowler, I believe. But it wasn't that difficult, I have to say. You know, and you know, going around the different grounds was brilliant. Different crowds everywhere you go. It was a fabulous experience. I mean, even that, you know, we're talking about going around Wales and selling the concept of a low membership. I mean, as the boys just rightly said, that was, at first I thought, I'm not too sure of this, but once we got into it, I think, and everybody got into it, it was great fun and great camaraderie, and you know, and kicked us off really well for that season.
A good length. What in it, lad?
Well, I keep telling everyone.
Yeah, hit
no rocket science.
pitch middle, hit the top of off. Well, here we are, and Sid, we can see you there at the non-strikers end, probably with Curtly Ambrose bowling there. That's probably, I'm sure, Sid, you would tell us that's probably the one of the best places to be. But of course, we can see here the ground that Matt, you mentioned, Penturch. So where Glamorgan began their home campaign in the Sunday League in 1993. Now, Matt, tell us about the story. Why Penturch?
I think he was due to a fallout with Ponty, Ron the Cunning Tap, and Ponce Town Council.
Pontypridd, yeah.
Pontypridd Town Council, when we'd played there the year before, and the mayor had struggled to get into the ground because limited spaces, etc. So there's a bit of a fallout, and Ron the Cunning Tap continued to help supporters take the games out into Ron the Cunning Tap, and the only other ground that was potentially suitable was Penturch. So Tony Dillaway went up, met with the people, John Moore and co at Penturch, and there the game got underway, and Curtly was bowling from the sea end. Of those people who know Penturch Cricket Club, it's not exactly Sully, it's not exactly just by the sea. The sea must be about 20 miles just beyond, and you can't see it even on a clear day unless you're at the top of the Garth Mountain. You can't see the sea from the cricket pitch at all. So why it's known as the sea end is way beyond me. But yeah, that was a brilliant day for the village, and still spoken about, to be fair, over the cricket club, you know, and reminisce quite a bit with Mr. Moore over there during the summer. So yeah, no, it's something really different again, and good crowd, but it was not to be in that game.
Because it was an interesting experience, because when Kirtley's arm was there, it was a long way above the sight screen, so the ball wasn't particularly easy to pick up. But it was quite a low and slow pitch, I think. So
yeah, I think
there was a lot of running between the wickets that day. I think weren't too many boundaries.
No, if my memory serves me right, I think Nick Cook may well have bowled quite well there, and was it Tony Penberthy as well? Possibly had one of their better days. But Glamorgan got onto a roll, and we got into the winning habit. And one of the outstanding victories happened again at another outground, Colwyn Bay, in a remarkable victory. I think it was by 166 runs against Durham, and Adrian Dale's outstanding bowling. Now, Sid, you mentioned you were very, very good friends and still are with Adrian. We had the pleasure of Adrian's company earlier in the last winter. But your memories of Daly that day at Colwyn Bay?
I can't remember a lot about that game, if I'm totally honest. But I mean, to talk about Adrian generally, I mean, he's, you know, he was such a good cricketer. I mean, we used to talk about him as a nuts and bolts cricketer, but he was probably a lot better than that. And he's the type of cricketer who, once he was finished, I think people then truly realised how good he was. You know, he started as a batsman. He didn't start bowling until he was probably 16 or 17, but he made himself into such a useful bowler. You know, he bowled wicket to wicket on those, you know, low and slow pitches that we had at home. You know, just sort of as a six bowling option for the captain, he was such an asset. And I don't think I played cricket with anybody who loves cricket as much as Adrian does. I think that shows now. He's still playing for New Zealand over 50s, isn't he? You always knew that once he'd finished, he was going to keep on playing, because he absolutely loved playing. I'd share a room with him. Sometimes I'd get up in the morning and look and see if it was raining or hoping it might be raining. But Adrian was always up and wanting to play. And yeah, great man and a very good cricketer.
And of course, that year, 1993, one of the personal highlights for both Adrian, but also for Viv and the people who were there that day in the County Championship, the 4-day game against Middlesex, a Glamorgan club record, 425 for the fourth wicket. Adrian making an outstanding double hundred, and Viv as well. Reaching a double hundred against a pretty strong, it must be said, Middlesex attack. Matt, have you got any memories of that partnership against Middlesex?
I remember Viv coming in at tea saying, "Don't declare, just bat," because it was starting to spin, and he was a bit worried that the Tufnell might get into us in the last innings. Just carry on batting. And I think he wanted to try and get 800 if we could. He was concerned that the wicket was going to deter. I'm just noticing that there's quite a big crowd in there as well, isn't there? You know, quite a good number for a championship match watching the game. It was a wonderful partnership. I mean, they did actually make batting look fairly easy, but I do remember Viv getting one off Tufnell that did actually spit at him just before tea, I think it was. I think we declared then an hour after tea or something like that, you know. But it was a wonderful partnership, and I just look. I mean, that's a measure of the man there, Viv. That I reckon the boys are coming off there either at tea or when we've declared. But Viv's clapping Adrian off. They're not going out. You know, Viv got 226 or whatever, and he's clapping Adrian off. You know, who's just a. You know, Viv's a superstar, isn't he? There, you know, and he's clapping Daly off, you know. And it was a wonderful knock by the pair of them. Don't get me wrong, but I just think that's humility, that what Viv's done there, and you know, wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, wonderful that.
Sid, anything to add?
I actually remember, I hadn't scored a double hundred at that stage, and I remember saying to Adrian afterwards, I said, I said, well played, that was brilliant. I remember saying to him, I don't think I could ever get a 200. I could never imagine myself getting 200 in a first class game. And I remember saying to him, you could, you could. And that actually put a sort of a seed in my mind, okay, those two have got double hundreds. One day hopefully I'll go on to do that. So it was actually quite a big motivating thing for me in the rest of my career.
Yep, and as you'd expect from the Glamorgan scorer, how nice to see the scoreboard there. Glamorgan 562 for 3, Viv 224, Adrian 214, and you can see the last wicket having fallen on 137. I'm also including this, and Matt, I think you could add here, because the club had also, around about that time, had signed a very lucrative sponsorship partnership with ASW, that's Allied Steel and Wire, a company based in Cardiff Bay. Matt, how important was it for Glamorgan to have such marquee sponsors, well-known companies coming in and now giving their backing to Glamorgan?
It was brilliantly done. I think that the deal was done by our chief exec at the time, who was Phil Carling, and it was to go through all our age groups as well, and really tie into like the junior cricket, as well as I think on the Saturday with was it still going then, Sid, and the leagues on the Saturday?
Yeah, I think it was just about, maybe, yeah.
Yeah,
maybe just coming to an end.
I think it was just like all tied in there. It was a massive deal at the time. The figures that were talked about, it was the biggest in the country. In cricketing terms. So that obviously allowed us to sign players like Viv, who I guess wouldn't have been cheap. But yeah, a brilliant sponsorship deal. It lasted a good number of years, and helped pay the pathway for our young players coming through as well. Enabling the club to get a player of over there as well. Yeah,
absolutely. Now, Sid, a few minutes ago, you mentioned about the good run that Glamorgan also enjoyed in 1993 in the NatWest Trophy. Unfortunately, that good run came to an end at Hove during a game semi-final against Sussex. I think there were people that day thinking, here we are, Glamorgan poised to head to Lords again, but it wasn't to be. Sid, what are your memories of that day?
It was an eventful day, that one. I mean, we batted first and probably didn't get enough runs, and but we bowled brilliantly to get back in the game. Alan Wells got 100 in a big partnership with Neil Lennon, but I suppose the big talking point was there was a run out that was actually out, but wasn't given. And in those days, there was no TV umpire, but there was in the other semi-final for some reason that day, but not in our game. So if that run out had been given, we would have won that game. There was a bit of aggro in that game as well. I think Matt might want to say something on that, but I think even David Smith might have had a bit of a ding dong. But it was a big game, and it was just massively deflating and disappointing that we lost it.
Go on, Matt. Tell us about your spat then with David Smith.
It was nothing really. He just tried to whack Watty a couple of times, and then dribbled off his bat to me at short cover, and I just kind of wriggled my hand as if I'd stopped a real blazer, which had almost taken my hand off. So it was a bit of a Mickey take, and he didn't really take that to heart. So when we came off for the break in their innings, he was standing by the dressing room as we had to go past and up to our dressing room and say, "I'll see you afterwards, Maynard." and thankfully, an angry Viv was there on my shoulder, kind of helped kick things off a little bit more and got tempers flared even more so. But yeah, what he's James is dead right. Viv's run out of Lennon, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Was a phenomenal bit of work, you know, and he maintained high standards throughout his career, not just with the bat but in the field, and that was the game changer that wasn't given really.
Okay, well,
But you need a bit of luck, and we'll come on to that obviously a little bit later on.
yeah. But you also, in 1993, enjoyed a remarkable game at Neath against the Australians. I know, Watty, you actually missed the game. You were resting, but Matt scored 100 before lunch, and the photo here of you celebrating was the news that both of you had been chosen in the England squad, the first time, I think, ever in the club's history that two current Glamorgan players poised to play in a test match. And of course, the 1993 Australians being the opponents. Matt, your recollection of that 100 before lunch, just before you start though, I've got a funny feeling that the game was televised by BBC Wales. We can actually see in the top left-hand corner some commentary boxes, but I've got a funny feeling, Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, that the Farmer's Forecast took priority over the live coverage of you going to three figures.
I wouldn't have a clue, Chalker. I don't think I've ever seen the game again. We just played, you know, played that day. Yeah, I don't know what the heck, man, what you're doing there, to be honest. What's all that about? But yeah, like, it was one of those days where you're feeling Nick. I think we lost a wicket with the last ball the night before. So I went fresh to the crease that morning, and just felt in great touch and didn't bowl very well. It was a flat deck, and yeah, I seemed to hit the gap a few times, and yeah, I managed to get that 100 before lunch, which was very nice to get. But you know, ultimately playing the Aussies or the Australians in between test matches is a lot different than playing them in a test match.
And what are your recollection then of playing, I think it was the 6th test at the Oval against the Australians?
Yeah, I mean, that was before I think the test match after that photo was taken was at Birmingham, and I didn't play the game, so I was in the squad, but I got released to come back to play for Glamorgan. Yeah, I mean, when we did finally play together at the Oval, again, it was a test we'd won. I think it was Michael Atherton had come in and take over from Graham Gooch earlier on to be captain, so there was a little bit of a freshness about it. Good cricket wicket, the Oval as it always is, bit of pace, bit of bounce, and yeah, I mean, things went well for England during that game. I think we batted first and we got a score. Rampakash played, didn't he? Rampakash came in for Graham Thorpe with his finger on the morning, so Ramps came in and got a good 70, I think. We mustered 360. We bowled quite well, and then we batted well again, and then we set them 300 or something like that on the last day. Yeah, so we had wickets early on, and I said we won the game, and it was the first win of the series. England actually lost 4-1 in that series, so. Unfortunately, I played in the one test that we did actually win. So yeah, great memories. There's a couple of good photos, I think, of me and Matt at the Oval at the end of the game celebrating victory. So I've got them somewhere. So they're always nice to look back again with fond memories.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's return to I was going to say the Sunday League, but to give it its full title, the AXA and Equity Law League. By the beginning of September, Glamorgan were still riding high. I think we had something like 12 consecutive victories, and we knew that we were just another victory or two away. There was a big game at Cardiff, Glamorgan against Essex. You can see there Hugh on the left, Graham Gooch on the right, but as you can see from the brolly, very unseasonal rain in September at Sapphire Gardens washed the game out, and it helped to set up a truly remarkable day. I know Geoffrey Chaucer wrote about a Canterbury tale. Well, if he had been around in 1993, he would have had plenty of new material to add to his Canterbury Tales. And here we are, we can see from that great day, Glamorgan in the field, some important catches being taken. Sid, if you want to set the ball rolling here, because in the field, what were your memories?
I think that Adrian Dale's taken a very good catch at mid-wicket, I think, isn't he?
Yeah.
I can't remember him ever fielding at mid-wicket before or after that, so I'm not sure what happened there. But yeah, it was good. I mean, it was just, amazing day, amazing atmosphere. Couldn't get into the ground before the game. There were so many Welsh people there, daffodils and red shirts everywhere. I mean, for someone like me, I was quite young and inexperienced, and it was quite a daunting day. If I'm honest, that was probably my first big occasion. Probably didn't deal with it too well with the bat, if I'm honest. Got one. I think I was dropped once in scoring one or something. So I don't think Matt got many. Matt was OBW, I think, wasn't he? But he had a bad neck, and we were indebted to Cots and Viv later on. But just the one thing I do remember is the ovation when Viv went out to bat, because obviously that was the last time they were going to see the great man in a big game. I mean, the next day was his last first-class innings, wasn't it? The ovation there, and I actually did a piece on it in the paper the other day, and I watched it back on YouTube, and I was, getting pins and needles down the back of my neck, just watching it. It was actually really, really emotional. And then there was that battle he had with Duncan Spencer, who bowled really quickly.
Here you can see the two. Just tell me, maybe either Matt or you, Sid, just a little bit of background about Duncan Spencer. Maybe not a name that is well known. Had a fairly short career with Kent, but a very slippery fast bowler, Sid.
Yeah, I mean, he's quite short, wasn't he? But yeah, very quick. I mean, he had a short career because of injury, and actually, I think he got done for drugs later on, didn't he? But the main thing was he struggled with injury. And I know about a week before he bowled out Zimbabwe in a 3-day game. And I remember speaking to a couple of the Zimbabwean lads, Grant Flower especially, was saying how quickly he bowled in that game. And I think he shocked Viv, and he certainly shocked Adrian Dale, who got hit in the ribs. And I still think he still had the bruise about 6 months later, I think, on his ribs. Yeah, I mean, he bowled exceptionally quickly, and he obviously got Viv out with that no ball, which thankfully for us was given as a no ball.
Yeah, the umpires there were David Constant and Jerry Stickley, who in later years I had the pleasure of sharing a score box, because Jerry then became the Somerset scorer. Matt, what are your memories of the Glamorgan innings that day?
My memory's kind of stacked. So we were playing a 4-day game. First day got washed out. Kent hammered us for 2 days. Absolutely all over us. Got runs, bowled us out cheaply, should have made us follow on, didn't, batted again, smacked us around the park. And on the Saturday night, we were 13 for 2 or 17 for 2, needing 500 to win or 480 to win. Totally outplayed, smashed around the park, deflated. Viv comes in the dressing room, gets a crate of beer after having a bit of abuse with the Kent captain, Steve Marsh, just saying that he messed with the game rather than, he should have made us follow on. That's the right thing to do in a game. Got us down, and he went through every player in that dressing room. Just, for example, he went, "JMO, you're the run thief. You've had a magnificent year this year. Keep doing what you're doing. Run and ragged tomorrow. Hugh Morris, you've had a phenomenal year. Bang, bang, bang. This, Matt, Daly, Matt, Cots, all the way through the team. What are you bowling? Fantastic. You've led the attack fantastically all year. Keep doing your thing, mate. Stay positive and all this." And we all kind of left that dressing room that night with our heads held high, even though we'd been pummeled for 2 days. And then Hugh did a brilliant thing the next day. We fielded first, and Hugh let Viv lead us out as well onto the field, which I thought was a brilliant thing to do. Not only obviously Viv's last competitive game, but also to get the crowd really going, which they did, and a true. And we fielded brilliantly. The reason why Daly was at mid-wicket and not me was because of my neck, my neck. But we bowled brilliantly, restricted them. It was a 50 over campaign that year, restricted them to 200. And then batting, lost JMO fairly early, but then Daly and Hugh put on a good few before he lost 2 quick wickets. Me being one of them, LB to this guy, Spencer. He was quick, just angled it back in as well, which is never nice. But I think that the thing I touched on it earlier during that semi-final of the NatWest, that in that game, Sussex got a bit of luck, bit of fortune, and in this game we got a bit of fortune when Viv was nicked off, only for David Constant to be holding his hand out, no ball. I think the next ball went over to extra cover like a tracer bullet for 4. Unbelievable shot. But he hurried Viv up as well. He was quick. He was quick, Spencer. But a brilliant innings, and Viv obviously had that half chance, but Tony Cotty didn't. He had a chanceless innings, 40 odd, and a brilliant partnership to win the game quite comfortably for us. And there they are coming off, and what it meant for Viv was just incredible. He was in tears in the dressing room afterwards, and so pumped up. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, I've got a little montage here of images, but we mustn't forget that Tony Copty there has just hit the winning ball. I know he still dines out on the fact that he hit it straight for 4, but of course, what we mustn't forget, it was straight over the wicketkeeper's head. Watty, what are your memories of that day?
Yeah, much the same as the boys there. Obviously, very busy on the morning of the game. Lots of traffic, getting to the ground, warming up. Massive crowd in. It was more like a home game than an away game. All I could hear were Welsh people anyway, or Glamorgan fans. A decent wicket to bowl on when we bowled on it. I don't know whether it was a little bit damp and it dried up a little bit, but it did a little bit with the new ball, and it spun a bit as well. So 200 was still going to be a challenge in total. And we batted collectively brilliantly, and for Viv to be there at the end, I mean, and with Cots, of course, but for Viv to be there to finish his career with Glamorgan, winning a trophy, and there's the photo. That's my abiding memory. Viv in tears in the dressing room, which says it all for me. Fantastic. Tears of obviously relief, emotion, happiness, all that says it all. That one, to be honest. But yeah, I don't know what I was in there.
Yeah, in the foreground there, giving him a hug. That's young Stuart Phelps, who, along with James Williams, had made his first-class debut for Glamorgan in that game in 1993 against the Australians at Neath. I know it's very nice to have James on the call this evening, who's now master in charge of cricket at Clifton College. I hope, James, this is bringing back happy memories. There again, we can see the team on the balcony. I think Crofty was doing his Alouetta routine, and a memorable, truly memorable day for everyone there. Of course, in time-honoured tradition, the team went and celebrated in the little pub on the corner of the ground, sadly no longer there at Canterbury, the Bat and Ball, and there, a wonderful image, Hugh on the right, Viv on the left, and you can see so many Glamorgan supporters there. Now, I'm delighted that Darren Thomas has joined us. Darren, good evening after your coaching exploits. I'll just bring you in quickly, your own memories, Darren, of Canterbury 1993.
1993. Well, I think I was up in Lancashire, Jocks. If my
right.
memory serves me right. Yeah, I was actually due due to be in the squad, but I got called up for the England under-19s at
Yeah.
the time to play against, I think it was the West Indies. And ultimately, I was watching far afield as being 12th man for England under-19s, which I was devastated, really, to be honest, because I was potentially going to be playing in the championship game down in Canterbury. So I was watching far afield, but it's nice to be here. Jorks, thanks for the invite, and sorry to be late. Obviously, from a coaching perspective, I just got caught up a little bit.
We're going to be talking in a few minutes' time about 1997, and I know Duncan Fletcher's on the call as well. So we'll move on from the happy days of September 1993. Just briefly, in the 1990s, some other major developments as a club in the lead up to 1997. Here we can see one of the possibly most historic moments in the club's history. November 1995, when Glamorgan actually acquired the head lease here of the Sapphire Gardens ground. Of course, head lease from Cardiff Council, and Cardiff Athletic Club having been the previous tenants. Of course, that meant that we, Glamorgan, now having a ground, a head ground of our own, having previously rented both Sapphire Gardens and St Helens Swansea, and then the other grounds that we've been talking about this evening. What it meant was that we had a base, a ground that we could develop. And during the late 1990s, something that we'll touch on in a minute, the facilities, the transformation into the stadium that it is now. I know in the final anniversary talk, at the beginning of December, we're going to be talking about the creation of the test match arena. But of course, one of the benefits during the late 1990s was that instead of having pre-season training, as here we can see this is the squad of 1992 going for a few loosening exercises. Of course, the club, very proudly, the building that I'm sat in now, we had as our training base the National Cricket Centre here at Sapphire Gardens, a facility, of course, which is still used and quite rightly so by the emerging players, as well as the first 11 and the second 11 and the entire playing squad. I know earlier on today, when we had a school group going around, they were able to look down from the windows here in the museum to see the stars of the current Glamorgan team going through their paces under the watchful eye of the coaching staff led by Matt. And I know then the 1990s saw this sea-level change in terms of the infrastructure, giving Glamorgan the facilities. Yes, still going to Neath at the indoor school there. Yes, still going to Ebbw Vale. But the club was starting to move into the new modern era. Well, in 1997, if we move on, of course, the building that was beginning to start at the ground witnessed another memorable year in the history of our wonderful club. That's what we're going to focus on now for the rest of this evening's presentation. And I'm delighted to say, as he introduced himself at the beginning, joining us this evening, the man who, as you can see there, no pun intended, was behind literally this galaxy of homegrown talent that was that had emerged, the squad by and large that had won the Sunday League title in 1993. We didn't have Viv, but of course we did have quite a useful guy called Wakar, but we'll talk about Wakar in a minute. But Duncan Fletcher, great to have you on the call this evening as Glamorgan head coach. Duncan, what was it that led you to move to Wales that summer?
I think what happened was came over on a rather successful tour with South African A as a coach, and I'd hardly been in the coaching game at that level. And I think we just played well against Glamorgan at Cardiff. We won quite easily, and it seemed to impress a few administrators at Glamorgan, and I was approached by them, and I just thought, speaking to our chief exec of cricket at Western Province, that it would be a good experience for me to come over and coach in England and just gain a lot of experience. And that's the reason why I came over.
And Sid, as someone who has worked very closely with Fletch, both as a player and now Sid in your role as a very esteemed journalist, if you had to sum up Fletcher's qualities as a coach, what would they be?
Oh, that's a difficult question, that, Higgins. I mean, firstly to say, when Duncan when his name was first mentioned, I'd obviously been playing quite a lot of cricket in Zimbabwe. I hadn't met Duncan because he'd obviously moved on to South Africa, but I just remember the way people talked about him in Zimbabwe. There's almost a bit of sort of reverence about how good a captain he was and how good a cricketer he was. So I just remember Matt mentioning his name as a possible coach and just saying, yeah, let's go for him. I've heard great things about him. Yeah, and so, I mean, he arrived. Took us a while to get to know him. I think he's quite like me. He's quite shy. We had nets in Cardiff for a couple of weeks outside. We had brilliant weather, but I mean, I thought it was the mark of a really good coach in that he didn't dive in and try and do anything straight away. He just sat back and observed and tried to get to know the boys. What he did bring in was some brilliant fielding exercises. New exercises we hadn't done before. And I think one of the great things that Duncan brought in was I thought he made us more professional as a side in terms of that fielding and in terms of being fit during the season, because that's something we didn't do before. So he encouraged a lot of light touch rugby and football after play, and a lot of fielding exercises, his crossovers and his 10 catches and that sort of stuff. There are obviously little bits of technical stuff, but he didn't have much time to change people's techniques, but it was just a bit of fine tuning here and there.
And as I mentioned, Matt, Glamorgan had also acquired the services of probably at the time one of the world's leading faster bowlers in Waqar Younis. So Matt, just tell us as club captain then how it came to be that Waqar was, and of course still is in many people's eyes, Waqar is a Welshman. Talk us through it, Matt.
We were talking at the back end of '96 that we just needed a final piece, if you like, of a jigsaw. And so Mike mentioned Waqar, and his agent was a guy called Jonathan Barnett. So we went down to London. I was chatting to Waqar about, just coming down and enjoying himself in Wales and stuff like this. And he was obviously familiar with it. And Mike went talking numbers with his agent and got the deal done and dusted. It was just like, wow, we've signed one of the greats here. We've signed a guy like Viv had changed a lot of our perceptions as younger players. We were now a group of more mature cricketers, late 20s, early 30s, understood our games pretty well individually, but also collectively. But we just needed a little bit of kind of X factor at time to balance what we had in the brilliant Watty, most consistent bowler of the generation, alongside, a young, exciting Darren Thomas coming through. Great, real good spin bowlers. One main in Crofty, and then the emergence of Dean Cosker in '96 as well. So it was just almost the final piece of the jigsaw, and when we signed it was really exciting, and he just showed his worth in a couple of games, where we needed something special, and my word, he delivered. So absolutely brilliant having him there. Free reign. It was also the year where we had choice of which cricket ball we wanted to use. So we either had a Duke or a Reader ball. So I just say to Wack, what do you think? Wack, any home match where we had the choice, what do you think, mate? Reader, or he said, Duke, not going to reverse here. We'll go Duke later on in the season. Yeah, we go Reader, we'll get it reversing. So just spare him like an opening spell of 4 overs. And then when about 20 over mark, and he'd managed to start getting it to reverse a little bit, and phenomenal skill.
Darren, did you what did Wacker teach you in terms of bowling skills?
I can't say that on here, can I?
Well, it is being recorded. But,
no, he was he's fantastic, Wacker. He taught us how, especially his knowledge and experience against players, the England players like the Graham Hicks, the Australians like your Tom Moody's and people like that. How to go about your business against them, how to hold a length against them, how to attack them, especially when the ball was reversing. To stay patient in a way rather than trying to go for a wicket-taking ball all the time. He was fantastic in that context. I have a fond memory of facing him up in Yorkshire indoor nets as well, which wasn't too pleasant, to be honest. It was he got me on the side of the head after 3 or 4 balls, and I think I was an early introduction to Wacker when he came over when we were playing him up in Headingley. So he was fantastic to me, and he was always there as support, as was Watty all the time, as was majority of the senior players. So he was a good source to have fall back on anyway.
Well, the 1997 season began, the championship season, I should say, began at Sapphire Gardens. We can see there in the background the lovely shed that was still very popular. I'm sure many people on the call have got very fond memories of sitting there, and perhaps some of the people on the call remember watching Hugh Morris take apart a very powerful Warwickshire bowling attack. 233 not out. Sid, as someone who now was Hugh's opening partner, what are your memories of that game and Hugh's double 100?
Yeah, I mean, it's a game we would have won, but for the rain, I think, wasn't it? I think we bowled them out very cheaply. I think Darren might have got some wickets there, actually. And then Hugh played remarkably. I mean, it was a slow wicket, but Donald certainly ran in and bowled quickly. And I think I actually got out at the end of the first day, and Watty had to come in as night watchman. I think he was quite proud that he saw off Alan Donald that night. So but I mean, for Hugh to get 233 and then get carried off because he got hit on the head shows how much Donald was trying on that game. Yeah, we basically had him on toast in that game, and unfortunately the rain came in and scuppered us. But I think it was a good start because Warwickshire were a good side, and I think it showed us how good we could be in that season.
Fletch, for you, it must have been very reassuring, all the hard work you'd put in pre-season, and then Glamorgan go out and post just over 500 against Warwickshire.
I think what was very, very important that season started off so well and positively, sort of gave the side a lot of confidence. And the way Hugh and Steve batted there really set the base for the rest of the season. And they were so good as opening batters. They complemented each other and set us alight. And I think it was really important that once we had got that good start, we had to maintain that sort of positive attitude. And this is what we try to instill in the side. And we had a great example in Matthew Maynard. I mean, I think Matt's sitting there, but I think the biggest compliment we can have about that side was Matthew's attitude at all stages, him being so positive. I do realize that he did know he had a good side underneath him, but still there were occasions where classic time was when we were at Lancashire, and it really showed me what a character Matt was it had rained a lot, and he had got us around. There were about 4 of us, Hugh, Wacker, myself, and I think Steve might have been there, Watty might have been there. And he wanted to declare, and the other 3 said, no, we won't. I don't think it's a wise decision, because he was going to set sort of to us an unrealistic target, you know, to knock over Lancashire. And he just went on his own. He ignored us, went and set a target, and we beat them. And I think that's really when we realised we could win the county championship. And I noticed in this game, I did sit back, as Sid said earlier, to watch a bit, and just watched Matt in this game, and I realised what a positive influence he had on the side.
Well, let's just dwell a little bit more, Sid, on that game at Liverpool in 1997, because I think I'm right in saying that for 4 days you were unbeaten on 99, weren't you?
Yeah, so I think we won the toss and batted, and about 3 o'clock it started raining. I just happened to be on 99. I thought I would just be off for half an hour and then go back on. But yeah, never got back on until the last day. Yeah, it's a quirky thing, isn't it? But you'd rather be 99 not out for a few days than having got naught and stewing about that. But yeah, I mean, obviously that season went well for me personally. I mean, the previous season had gone pretty well, but Duncan probably won't remember this, but he said one little thing to me that at the start of that season, which really gave me a lot of confidence. We were chatting one day, and he just said, I mean, I don't know whether he meant to say it or not, he said that I reminded him of Gary Kirsten. Now, I know I wasn't as good a player as Gary Kirsten, but for Duncan to say that, having worked with him a lot at Western Province, just gave me massive confidence for the rest of the season. I just thought that was brilliant coaching. It was only a little thing he said, but I'm not sure he even realised just how big an effect it had on me, but it did have a massive effect on me.
And Matt, that spell by Wakar at Liverpool, 7 for 26. I think I'm right in saying that twice Wakar, during that remarkable spell, Lancashire bowled out for 51. I think twice Matt Wakar was on a hat trick.
Yeah, I think in the first over as well.
Yeah.
After first ball went down leg side, Adrian Shaw, our keeper, flung himself at it, and he came up and he was absolutely covered in muck, because it had been raining for a long time. But he can't look at me. I'll just never forget him saying that. And then he got the swing right the next ball, LB, nick off. Incredible spell, and he could do that. You know, he that was the X factor I talked about earlier. But that, look, I think we had a good. I think Jay was absolutely spot on. We had a good side, good players who knew him, but there were bits and pieces that just came in lovely. Prior to this game, the game before Lancashire, we'd lost by an innings and 9 runs against Middlesex and Cardiff. We got bowled out for 31. And it was like Fletcher's reaction to that loss was incredible. No ranting, no raving, nothing, very calm in the dressing room. Look, guys, it's one of those things. It's what these things happen in the game of cricket. And it was like, we're still done brilliant. We're still done X, Y. We're still done this. So a great attitude from, you know, the coaching side of things, not to then, it's all gone horribly wrong because we've had one of these freak innings where 2 opening bowlers out in the space of 18 overs, I think.
It was quite interesting. I still remember, Matt, the famous song by the Cardiff footballers, wasn't it? We had joy, we had fun with that magic 31.
yeah, exactly. But I mean, we bowled Lancashire, as you touched on there, after a forfeit for 50. We go down to Swansea next game, and I think we bowled Sussex out for 60 and 70, or 60 and 80, maybe 70 and 8. Jamie, you got good runs on a tricky wicket there.
That's the only game when Watty, I got 80 or not out on a stinking pitch tonight. And Watty actually said well played to me when I came in. I think it's the only time he's ever said well played to me in my career. So I knew I must have played pretty well.
Well, let's just touch a little bit longer on the camaraderie, because I was lucky enough with Ed Bevan and with Don Shepherd to be working on Radio Wales and to actually be staying in the same hotels and to witness the that great team spirit. And Darren, sorry to bring up again that team meal, that the tradition of the team meal that everyone during the course of the season had to arrange an evening out for the team. And I think you found, Darren, it was a magnificent French restaurant, wasn't it, Darren, that you found?
Yeah, it was actually, yeah, it's Matthew's after dinner speeches, isn't it? Right, but yeah, it
And
was
everyone
fantastic. Yeah, and everyone else's. Yeah, I read it in Ian Bolton's book the other week. But yeah, it was the only thing I'd done up in Liverpool. Thank goodness. You know, the batter scored the runs, and obviously the Waka got wickets with Watty. We had a brilliant win. But yeah, it was. I had the responsibility of Dean Conway gave me the responsibility of booking the team meal. Scousers, I'm a Llanelli boy coming out with the Llanelli, going in, listening to the Scousers speak. I couldn't make head or tails of what they were saying, to be honest with you. And I asked them, can you sort us out with a decent restaurant behind reception? They said, yeah, we'll sort it out. And they said, it's a Mercy View, something like that it was, in my dodgy Scouser accent. And I went straight to the boy, said, right, get your glad rags on, lads. Right, we're going to a classic French restaurant this evening. Gonna have nice food, right? So yeah, I had firmly the clown of the day shirt because it was a beef eater with a Mersey view that we went to and ate at. So yeah, it was a belter, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think I can warmly recommend it, because I was in Liverpool a few years afterwards, and I did actually for posterity go there, and yeah, maybe not the French cuisine, but anyway.
Before was the bonding, but we'll keep that between us and the spy.
Yeah.
Hey, Fletch.
Yeah.
Yeah, dear old Gordon. Of course, we just mentioned there Waka at Swansea. There's a photo there after Waka had taken 8 for 17 against Sussex at Swansea. And the Evening Post photographer there turning up, seeing Waka with his feet up after an outstanding performance. As you mentioned, Matt, Glamorgan had come down to earth at Cardiff, dismissed 4-31 by Middlesex. But let's not just dwell on the championship in 1997. Let's not forget that we enjoyed a very good run in the NatWest Trophy. And that started, Steve, sorry, Jamer, that started with the match against Hampshire at Southampton, where you and the former secretary of the MCC, now the chief executive of Essex, had a slight disagreement, I think, Sid. That's fair to say. What are your memories of your chat with John Stevenson?
Well, I like to think I'm quite a mild-mannered chap, but now and again the red mist could descend. I was playing with Shawsey, Adrian Shaw, and it was obviously a tight run chase, wasn't it? And we were trying to run hard, and there was a run out, and we were both stranded in the middle. The throw came into Sean Udall, but he actually dropped the ball and took the bails off with the ball it was literally about 5 yards away, and Ray Julian gave him out. And I don't think anybody could really believe it. And the Hampshire players sort of gathered round to basically say, we're going to call Shawsey back, because it was such an obviously wrong decision. But at that moment, Stevenson piled in and basically swore and told Shawsey to go on his way. So I wasn't particularly happy with that, and I let him know what I thought about that. I may have even put my glove towards his face, actually. But meanwhile, while I was doing that, I think Robin Smith and Matthew Hayden called Shawsey back. And it was weird, because after that, Hampshire just went totally silent. We were just always going to win that game after that. It showed that the Hampshire side weren't particularly behind their captain, I thought. And we went on to win the game. But yeah, I think in this day and age, I'd have been definitely fined and probably banned for what happened there. But yeah, it was a good win and a good day.
Well, we had further victories, and that set up quite a tense quarter-final at Sapphire Gardens against Yorkshire, where Matt, you mentioned lurking in the team, a young, talented left-arm spinner, of course, Dean Koska, who came in to actually share what proved to be a match-winning partnership at the other end with Wakar. So, Matt, what are your memories there of that tense quarter-final here at Sapphire Gardens?
Nearly 25 years ago, George.
I know. Seems like yesterday.
Did Michael Vaughan drop a?
Yes.
Yeah.
He dropped Wakar.
Actually, I
Yeah, he
think
dropped Wakar.
going back like that. I think that was the turning point. Oh, we're going to win this now. Even though we still probably needed a few runs at that stage, 17, 20 or something. But it was just one of those moments that you think, yeah, that's a game changer. That catch there, and Lurk stuck around, and obviously Wakar loved his batting. Absolutely loved it. You know, I think that first game one of the early games, we put him up to 8. You know, because one that he wasn't a better batter than Darren Thomas by any stretch of the imagination, but the fact that if opposition bowlers put him under a lot of pressure and got him riled up, it might have just helped with his bowling as well. So that was the thinking behind that, and he did love his batting, and he played really well and got us over the line in that game. But as I say, the big drop catch. But Lurks, he was absolute. Came into the side in '96. This young lad, straight out of Millfield, essentially, but could bowl, you know, and could bowl and real good control. Spun it a little bit. Wet behind the ears when it came to batting. You know, just like front foot defensive, burning the balls flying past his head. But one or two of the youngsters coming to the side had the same thing there, didn't they, Teds?
Hey.
Chesterfield.
Hey, Chesterfield. Yeah.
But
I do remember that.
but you know, a good character.
A long time ago.
Yeah.
Well, my abiding memory of that was coverage again by the BBC, and I can vividly remember a couple of Glamorgan supporters in the lovely shed here that used to be at Sapphire Gardens, actually praying. The cameras actually, as the runs were slowly but surely being chiseled away, and there was a lady there with her husband alongside, eyes closed and saying a few words. So maybe the Almighty was our 12th man on that occasion. Well, it set up a quite outstanding game, a remarkable semi-final at Chelmsford. It went into the second day, but only because of bad light. We'll talk about the bad light and some of the other things that happened towards the end of that game in a minute. But a lot of people focus on maybe what happened towards the end of the game. But Sid, you actually scored an outstanding 100, which gave Glamorgan a platform then to bowl at. Your memories, Sid, of Chelmsford?
Yeah, it was hot. I can remember that. And obviously did a lot of running, as I did in one-day games. I think we got a score of just over 300, didn't we? Which, in 60 overs, I mean, these days that probably doesn't sound too much, but if you got over 300 in those days, you felt you were in with a good shout. But it was a good wicket. And Wacko probably didn't bowl as well as he could have done early on, and they got off to a bit of a flyer. And it got very tense towards the end, Crofty and Mark Eilert.
Yeah, well, I've
a few handbags towards the end, but I mean, I was happy enough to get 100. I was sort of up and down the order in one-day cricket that season, but in that game we decided that I was going to open. And Graham Goose was there. I remember he's an England selector. I was obviously trying to get in the England side, so I was quite happy to get 100 in front of him. But I thought we probably got enough, but obviously didn't turn out that way.
Yeah, no, during the middle of the afternoon, Darren, you also bowled quite an important spell, and I seem to remember your celebrations when Ronnie Irani was out were quite dramatic. Do you want to talk us through that, Teds?
Yeah, well, it's all I remember is basically earlier on bowling down the slope at Chelmsford. at Stuart Law, he was going off for a canter. He was smacking us at all parts and actually running down the wicket on one ball. And David Constance told me, listen, you got to get off the wicket, otherwise I'm going to have to call you. So I tried to go off the wicket a little bit further, tried to go wider of the crease and slid and bowled a beamer. And basically hit Stuart Law straight flush on the hand. He started going hard at me. I started going hard at him back. It was an accident. Matt came in, my captain came in from, I think it was backward point, and started sort of like defending us and our actions, and told Stuart Law, I think it was like to pick up his dummy in one way or another. And basically it all started from then. And I came on at the other end for my second spell. The ball had started just reversing a little bit. And basically Wacker had given us some advice on how to reverse the ball. He basically, taught, we worked on a lot of Yorkers of that over the season, going full. And yeah, I got one back in at Ronnie, hit him flush on, I think it was flush on the toe, given out. And as I'm celebrating, going down the wicket, Ronnie's looking for a leg by, and I've given him an uppercut in celebration, turning around. Thinking I was in trouble, I've gone down with holding my arm, and Ronnie's picking his helmet up off the floor. So that was that.
Yeah, you were punching the air in celebration, not knowing actually that you turn around and clog with Mr. Irani. But as Sid mentioned, little bit of handbags. This photograph, courtesy of Getty Images, just shows how dark the game, or just how dark the conditions were. I think by now it was, if it wasn't before 8 o'clock, it was getting, it was just after 8 o'clock. And of course, a few handbags, I think it led to quite a lot of coverage. I know News at 10, there was a gong about an American president. I think Nelson Mandela was number 2. And then number 3 was Crofty and Mark Eilert. It did lead to a little bit of coverage in the newspapers. And I think probably this Gren cartoon, Gren, the highly esteemed cartoonist from the South Wales Echo, possibly sums this up brilliantly, because of course by now Crofty had been admitted into the Gorsedd in the Eisteddfod, and you can see, well, you can read the caption, everyone. The origins lost in the mist of time, something to do with the traditional punishment for anyone who thumps a druid. And the sheep alongside, I think there might still be one in Merthyr with some spray paint like that. Crofty is innocent. Anyway, it did bring a smile to a few people's faces, but the game went into the next day. And Darren, sorry to bring you back in on this, but the following day, Essex needed a handful of runs. Glamorgan needed wickets. Just talk me through what happened, Darren.
Right, from memory, was it Hodgson, the left-handed batter?
Yeah.
I think they needed, I think it was 10 or 12 to win, was it?
Yeah.
And they had 2 wickets remaining from memory. And I remember working with Fletch in the morning around the wicket, trying to get the ball to move away from the left-hander. And that was our focus, because the ball was reversing. And I think I edged Hodgson off, not from any actually, was it? In the morning, from memory serves. And then Peter Such walks in. Now obviously Such is not particularly flash batter, is he? From memory. But ultimately, I tried to go Yorker at him early doors. He's missed it. He's just missed leg stump. I tried to go upstairs. Tried to go hard at him a little bit. He's missed it. And he's basically, they basically, I think it was my last ball of my over, of my spell actually. He's hit this through extra cover 4 to win the game, which it was a little bit of a full toss. I tried to go for the Yorker, tried to go for glory, and hit it for 4 through extra cover, which he didn't do a great deal of during his batting time during his career.
Well, in 1997, there was another remarkable game at Abergavenny in the county championship. Now, Watty, if I can bring you in here for this point, because something we can see the Abergavenny groundsman there tending the wicket in between innings. The game was Glamorgan against Northamptonshire, and you and Wacker were sharing the new ball, but Watty, there was something not quite right.
Yeah, I bowled the I don't know, the first or second ball, I can't remember, and I bowled quite a big wide, and I was walking back to my mark, and I think it was Matt actually. I think Matt said something to me and about the lines, and I said, yeah, I didn't feel quite right. So we had a stop. We had a look at where the lines were, and the geometry of the wickets weren't quite right. Where the wickets were actually facing the wrong direction, so to speak. So I think they called Len the groundsman out, and he got his whatever they do to line things up, and found the wicket was about 6 inches to a foot out. So they had to come back out. The groundsman had to come back out. The game stopped, and they had to remark the lines for the wickets and everything. So yeah, bit strange, but that's how I remember it. Something like that.
Yep, Graham Burgess and Tony Clarkson were the umpires, and I think what it meant, they also had to phone Lords just to allow time to be added on at the end of the day. And of course, in the lovely marquees there that line the Avenue Road ground at Abergavenny, lovely days for Glamorgan to visit to play 4-day cricket at Abergavenny. Not so good news for the local pig population, because I think there was a hog roast virtually every day, and my abiding memory sat alongside the sight screen was the lovely smell of a barbecue each day. And we also had, of course, because Abergavenny being such a lovely ground, and with Glamorgan riding high, we had a lot of the national correspondents, Matthew Engel, the late Christopher Martin Jenkins, and I think they all loved coming to Abergavenny rather than being at the faceless and the rather soulless test grounds that were being used for the 1997 test series. Well, let's move on to September 1997, because Matt and Fletch now, there was quite a crucial game in the championship against Essex. I think Crofty and Mark Eilert had, they'd shaken hands, and what had happened at Chelmsford was long forgotten. But what I think most people remember about now the championship game at Essex, against Essex at Cardiff in September 1997, was a match-winning innings by someone who'd not enjoyed his greatest of seasons, Matt, but Tony Cottee, together with yourself, I seem to remember on the final day, shared what was a crucial match-winning partnership.
Just prior to that, just on that game at Abergavenny, Hugh Morris went down on the morning with an ankle. We got highly competitive games going to get the juices going in the morning, and she went over, and in that game, James got 200s. In that game, we beat Northampton. That game, it was a massive thing without one of our England opening batsmen out, Alan Evans coming into the side. It was Al coming into the side, wasn't it? So,
yeah.
And James were getting 200s in the game, runs that we needed from him big time in that game. So an incredible game by James. This little fella, Cots, he'd had a quiet year by his own admission and stuff, but he was a proper little innings. He went right when we needed him. You know, he scored tough runs for us at tough times, Cots. And like the final in '93, he was there at the end scoring tough runs when the team needed him. And this was another case in point. I'd been dropped. Keeper had dropped me off Cowan for 2, I think, or maybe 0, and I got 2 from the drop. And then we put on a partnership, I don't know, 100 maybe to win the game. We're going okay, but it was a must win. It was a trickyish wicket, spinning, and Suchi was a pretty decent bowler. But what instigated the whole thing and allowed us to be batting and chasing 180, 200, something like that, was Waka came on for a spell and he was a bit shot, but Ronnie Irani thankfully tried to smack him back over his head. Well, did smack him back over his head first ball. And it was just brilliant. He just got Waka going. I think the next ball, Ronnie's stumps were all over the place, and then he got Grayson out just after that. And it was just got Waka right in the game, which allowed us this run chase. And yeah, Cots came to the party and played really well.
I think coming in here, I think
Yeah.
Cots reminded me a lot of this little man. I tell you, he was a tremendous asset that year playing there. He didn't have a good season with the bat. But to be a successful team, there is no doubt that your changing room atmosphere must be on top of the game. And Cots played a huge role in that changing room. Did you agree, Matt?
100%.
Whenever someone got a little bit cocky or arrogant, Cots had this way of just cutting them down to size and just keeping the changing room in a nice, balanced atmosphere, a lot of humor. And I thought Cots played a huge part, and people mustn't underestimate that part he did play in the success of that year.
Yeah, and that victory against Essex, of course, then set up the final game of the season. Kent, I know, were pressing. There were other counties as well sniffing, and it was on the road to Taunton, the county ground, and Somerset batting first, Glamorgan knowing that a victory would clinch the championship title. Somerset batted first, dismissed for 252, and Waka then produced an outstanding spell in the first innings.
Yes, he did. I think prior to that game, I think he was a bit under the weather. I think he had the flu, so I think he was always going to play, but he was actually feeling quite ill before the start of the game. I think it was a flattish wicket, good cricket wicket, as you always know at Taunton. If you bowl well, you get a reward. And Waka ran in, wasn't feeling 100%, but I think he got 4 wickets in that innings. I think it was the catalyst to us knocking them over for around a couple of hundred, 260, 270 on a really, really good flat wicket. So I mean that got us rolling. I mean, I'm sure you're going to go on to talk about Matthew and Hugh's knocks, but that to bowl about for 270 put us right in the game. If we batted well, we knew we were going to have a good chance of obviously winning the game. But the innings of both Matthew and Hugh, phenomenal innings, both of them.
Yeah, and I was lucky enough. I was teaching at the time at Wells Cathedral School, and I'd been able to arrange my commitments the second day to be there. And boy, oh boy, was it a wise move, because I saw what was probably the greatest innings I've seen by a homegrown Glamorgan player. Let's not forget the light was pretty poor. Sid, you must have been sat there on the balcony at Taunton, looking down. I can remember being sat in the BBC commentary box alongside Ed and Don, and my abiding memory were all 5 lights on the scoreboard. In those days, before light meters, it was like a traffic light system.
Yeah,
That's my abiding memory. Sid, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the best innings I ever saw Matthew Maynard play. I just saw it was on a different level, and to do that under the circumstances when we needed to win that game, I thought was incredible. I think it's probably the best domestic innings I've ever seen, for the reasons you mentioned, because it was dark and Caddick was actually bowling quickly and swinging the ball around. So Hugh got 100 and played really well, but Hugh really had to struggle. But Matt was just batting on a different level that way. I think I'm right in saying he didn't get a single, did he, in the 100?
No, correct.
Yeah, it was just, I don't know, it's just incredible. I just sat there and all, yeah. And as I say, in the circumstances, yeah, incredible innings.
Fletch, you must have been so proud seeing everything come together.
Yeah, it did. I mean, it was fantastic, that innings. But I think if I'm right, one mustn't forget, I think Darren had quite a good little spell of that game at a vital part of the game. We needed to make a breakthrough. Am I right?
Yes,
Second innings, yeah.
There was 1 or 2 wickets. Darren came in and we were starting to sort of the game go away from us a bit. And he came in and got a couple of wickets. Was that right, Darren? Am I right there?
Yeah, that was second innings, Fletch. Yeah, I just
it was vital
yeah,
then.
yeah.
But then
Yeah,
going
but
back
obviously-
to Matthew's innings, I mean, when I saw that innings and I got involved with Matthew a lot, I just can't believe that man never played for England. I mean, you see a knock like that and you see that talent. I just believe he should have been a regular in the England side. It was such a good knock. It was really impressive.
Matt, what are your abiding memories?
There are certain times when you play that the picture's so clear of what you got to do. Like there's no doubt. There's no doubts in your mind as a player. You know, I had to play a positive innings, which wanted to carry on the intent that we've been showing all year. I was in good form going into that, and it was just it was a sea ball, hit ball, but it was such a good wicket. You know, you just played, but it was just we needed to get a score, and you know, it's one of those where there's actually no pressure on you whatsoever. Although other people might think, God, there must have been lots of pressure, because you're so clear in your thinking.
But Matt, I still reckon you've got to have something in you to do that. I mean, there are a lot of people go in there with that attitude, see ball, hit ball, and they're just not capable of doing it.
But it's
you must take a lot of credit for that. That was quality. That was class. Absolute flipping class.
Thank you.
Thank you, Fletch. And as you quite rightly say, Darren in Somerset's second innings took a fifer, and there was, I can remember, Graham Rose started to get some late runs, and this, don't forget, was on day 3. We still had day 4 to come. I think there was a little bit of an uncertain weather forecast, and the game was being covered by BBC, live pictures being beamed back. And I think people were starting to realise, as Darren started to take the wickets, that people should jump in their cars and head down to Taunton, because something very special was going to happen. And so it did. Dean Koska claiming the final Somerset wicket. A gentleman called Ben Trott, who, as we'll discover in the final anniversary talk, was also involved in 2002, this time when Glamorgan won the Sunday League at Canterbury against Kent. But back to 1997, Glamorgan needed 10 to win, and of course, no changing in the batting order. It was the usual pairing, Steve James and Hugh Morris going out. We can see former chief executive there at the back, Mike Fatkin on the balcony, knowing that history was around the corner, and a pensive Duncan Fletcher, wondering how long, of course, it was going to take, how many balls it was going to take for those 10 runs to be scored. Sid, I know you've gone on record as saying this was possibly one of the most nervous times you've ever felt going out to bat.
Yeah, there's quite a long story to this. I guess I'll try and keep it short, but it was a bit of a shambles, if I'm honest. As you say, we needed 10 to win. So you might have thought they'd like throw a few up and get it over and done with quickly, but I think there were some individual awards that season from White and Mackay. I think Andrew Caddick was near the top, so he wanted to make sure he maybe got another wicket or two. And me and him never really got on, so he was always keen to get me out. So basically, in trying to get 10, I was plumb LBW once, dropped a slip, and then Hugh got a single, and it went down the fine leg to Caddick, and I was facing, and I didn't realise how many we needed to win. So I've tickled it down to fine leg, thinking it'd just be a single. But what had happened was Caddick hadn't moved round. He's supposed to go over the fine leg. He just stayed where he was, a third man. So there's no fine leg, and it went for 4, and it meant we won, but I didn't realise. So before we'd gone out, Adrian Dale had said to me, if you're still out there, make sure you get me a stump. So Hugh got his stumps at one end and had run off, and I was still not really sure what was going on. And the crowd came on. I basically got engulfed in the middle of the field. And then I got put on somebody's shoulders. I got put on somebody's shoulders. But then this guy then suddenly dropped me to the ground. So I had 2 stumps and my bat. And when I went to the ground, somebody nicked one of the stumps and my bat. So I ended up with just, as I'm there, with just 1 stump. So I went back to the change rooms eventually when they let me go back. And I was gutted. And Adrian Dale was waiting at the bottom of the stairs. He had a stump in his hand. And basically his brother was a policeman. And he'd seen this guy nick the stump and told him he was a policeman and got it back off him. And so Adrian Dale had the stump. But I didn't get my bat back until I actually did an appeal in the South Wales Echo the next week. And somebody sheepishly came to the ground and gave me my bat back. So, I mean, people think it was like a glorious moment, but I made such a cock up of it, to be honest. But it was a great moment when we did win and you know, the celebrations afterwards. But yeah, bit of a shambles all around for me, to be honest.
Well, let's not forget that in 1948, it was a bowler who took the 10th wicket, Johnny Clay, to win the championship of 48. In 1969, it was the great Don Shepherd who took the final wicket. Sid, they can't take it away from you. You are still the only Glamorgan batter to have scored the winning runs when the championship was won. I think everyone on the call hopes that there'll be other batters fairly soon adding to your unique record. Well, Matt, as captain of the team in 1997, there you are with Hugh, who of course it was his final game. He'd also equalled Alan Jones's record for 52 first-class hundreds. Hugh was signing off to go and work for the ECB. Wacker looking very pleased, having recovered, as what he said, from his flu. But Matt, how proud were you there holding the championship trophy?
Oh, amazingly so, Chalks. You know, it's kind of what you. It's the toughest trophy, I believe, to win in the in the domestic game, and but would work really hard for it. Fletcher worked us really hard. We played actually one of the evenings, Fletch, didn't we, where we got out during that game, and wow, it was competitive. So everything we did, there was this competitive nature about it.
Was it because it was always the Pickenins versus the Madalas, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Am I right? The youngsters against the old men, Pickenin versus Madalas.
Pickenins always won, eh?
Yeah.
Highly charged. Yeah, but no, it was incredible. I mean, Hugh told us during that game, didn't he, that it was his last game, and kind of took me a bit by surprise, if I'm honest. I haven't seen that personally. I haven't seen that come in, because he was still playing so well. You know, he had a fantastic season. He obviously got a career best in the first game of that year, 233, and finished off with a big 100 there at Taunton. And you know, it took me a bit of a surprise, and we missed him, you know, in subsequent years. Really, that we probably haven't found an opening partnership as a domestic duo since that time. Really, as a solid opening partnership since those days, and it shows the importance of that with both bat and ball. You know, to have that solid opening foundation, and Hugh and JMO gave us that massively that year, and obviously Wacker and what he did with the ball.
Watty, just bring you in here because, of course, in that championship winning team, we mustn't forget the contributions, of course, Adrian Shaw behind the stumps. We've mentioned Croft and Koska, the spin twins. Watty, to have a nucleus of Welsh, to have a nucleus of homegrown players, how important was that for you?
Well, extremely important. I mean, as somebody born and bred in Wales, who subsequently went on to, start the Welsh Cricket Academy. Producing your own players is fundamental. Not sure we'll ever get back to what we did around that year. I think there was, out of all the players played, there were probably 2 or 3 who didn't come through our system, I believe. So it was a phenomenal effort from that point of view. So yeah, I mean, it is something we strive to do now, and we work very hard with all the young Welsh cricketers to get and then produce our own. So very important, but it's not the be all and end all. I mean, good cricketers are good cricketer. If we spot one somewhere, wherever they may be, it's our job to produce better cricketers and help people reach their potential. So important, but at the end of the day, it's about producing good Glamorgan cricket teams, and let's hope we'll be seeing good Glamorgan cricket teams in the near future.
Well, I can remember being invited into the Glamorgan changing room afterwards, and Fletch, I was so pleased there to see you wearing your Welsh rugby shirt. Do you still have it?
Yes, I did. I nearly wore it tonight, actually.
Good man. Good
So I've
man.
still got it. But it nearly got me into trouble, Higgins, huh? Big trouble. I
Go
think
on.
Matt can remember it when we were down in the pub. Remember, Matt? That guy didn't like the Welsh. And I was wearing this rugby jersey. And who was it? You and someone else. Was it John? The coach of the second
John
team.
Derrick, yeah.
John Derrick. He came and said, listen, Duncan, just stand aside for a bit. Can you remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Duncan, you've achieved, Duncan, so much in your career internationally, of course, with England, the headlines there, but how proud were you to have helped Glamorgan win the county title?
I was very proud, Eggers. I mean, when I came over, I didn't know what to expect. I'd never been involved in cricket in England before. But with the talented players that we had, it just needed a little bit of work to get them motivated. Well, I think they were motivated. That's probably the wrong word. It's just get them together as a unit. And, the results speaks for themselves. I think I was very lucky, though. Very lucky, because as mentioned there was a group of players that had a lot of talent. The side was well balanced. 2 solid, really good opening batters, an outstanding captain, really good bowlers. You had youth, experience, good administrators off the field. People mustn't forget Mike Fatkin and David Morgan, 2 great administrators. It was just a great team effort.
And the last word this evening with the captain of the team, Matt. Here you are, proudly holding the trophy aloft as the Glamorgan squad and officials heading off around Cardiff on an open-top bus tour. It must have been one of your proudest memories as a player, Matt.
Not that so much, Chalks. That's they're nice to do, but no, that it was the previous photograph that you showed. That's what it's about. It's about being with a team and celebrating when you've accomplished something you've worked 6 months for. That was after, it was a lovely thing to do and a lovely thing to experience, but it was that dressing room. That's the key thing, that dressing room with those characters that we had, and
yeah, and
friends to this, friends and colleagues to this day, if you like,
And probably would the summer of 1997, I know you've been involved in so many of our historic recent achievements, but would you say the summer of 1997 and winning the championship was up there at the top?
Yeah, look, it was, yeah, of course, on a personal level, I think from a team level, 93 kind of surpassed it in a way, because we were, look, that's personal opinion. We were strong on all 3 fronts in 93 in every competition up until end of September, if you like. But that's the hardest one to win. So, and we played some incredible cricket that year, individuals and collectively, played some amazing innings. I touched on that. We had 4 of our bowlers took 50 wickets. So our main 4 bowlers took 50 or more wickets: Waqar, Watty, Darren and Crofty. I think Lurk's got 34. Daly would have chipped in with 20. I mean, it was just an incredible effort. You know, the drive that Fletch kept having us, but also the calmness that he brought to the environment as coach. Never too up, never too down. You know, just brilliant learnings. Players go through various things during the course of the season. We have to get a couple of scratchy, and then you just get the coach to do a little bit of work with you, and he kind of puts it right. I think so. Some brilliant coaching that year. Just small stuff, just correct, as James touched on earlier. It might be the odd word here, might be the odd word there. You know, but yeah, great memories of a. But it was, look, it wasn't a difficult job captaining this bunch. You know, I'd say to Watty, there's a new ball. Let me know when you want one more over, so I can get the next person. Just leave him do his stuff. You know, it was a well-oiled machine. The same with Waqar. You know, just had to adjust the field occasionally to the spinners, and that was it.
Brilliant. Well, let me just finish by just touching very briefly on the legacy of the 1997 season. Several players going on to enjoy further success at Test level and in one-day internationals. Robert Croft, and of course, our guest this evening, Steve James, there receiving his England cap from Alex Stewart. Several players as well benefited, as we've heard, from the coaching nous of Duncan Fletcher, Darren Thomas, then in 1998, claiming Glamorgan's best ever one-day bowling figures against Surrey at Swansea, 7 for 16. We mustn't forget as well that Sapphire Gardens was also further developed, and in 1999, Cardiff hosted the Australian team for the Cricket World Cup. By then, the National Cricket Centre was complete, and the programme, when the Australians were here, as well as being in the National Cricket Centre, also a game against Glamorgan before, on the 20th of May 1999, Cardiff hosted its first ever one-day international as New Zealand beat Australia. Well, the staging of international matches and the redevelopment of the Sapphire Gardens ground will be amongst the themes in our final anniversary talk, which is being planned for early December. Before then, we have another museum talk. It's going to be with Matthew Elliott. It's scheduled for 7 o'clock on Wednesday, the 24th of November. So in 9 days' time, we'll be able to have an evening with Matthew Elliott, who of course also contributed to further Glamorgan success in the 2000s. But now it's time to finish what I think has been an outstanding evening of warm, happy and wonderful memories, and memories from a great bunch, not just a great bunch of cricketers, but some great and honest blokes as well. So I'd like, on behalf of everyone attending this evening's talk, I'd like to thank our guests this evening. So Matthew Maynard, Steve Watkin, Steve James, Darren Thomas, many, many thanks. The final word, though, I think goes to our special guest this evening, Duncan Fletcher. Duncan, thank you so much for giving up your time this evening in South Africa. I'll just hand over to you just to say a few closing words.
Well, Eggers, first of all, thanks very much for inviting me. And I mustn't forget as well that I must thank Glamorgan Cricket for appointing me as coach and offering me the opportunity to coach. Then I must also thank the players for play in the way they did and gave me the opportunity to put my name on the map in England cricket, which basically led me to being coach of England. And if it hadn't been for them as players, and if they hadn't have played as well as they could, you know, there's a fine line. I probably wouldn't have had that magnificent journey with the England cricket team. So I've just got to thank the people of Wales, the Welsh supporters and the players. Just say thank you very much for everything that you did for me.
Thank you, Duncan. And to finish on small Welsh words, diolch yn fawr iawn. Thank you so much for what you did. And thank you once again to all of our speakers, to Watty, to Sid, to Matt, to Darren, and yourselves. I look forward to speaking to you again in early December. Thank you so much, everyone, for a truly memorable evening, rich in Glamorgan nostalgia. Thank you very much. Good evening. Noswaith dda.